To do another Star Wars Episode 7 The Force Awakens video. Previously I had done the entire movie review, talked about how I loved it, but I gave it some criticism too. And one of those criticisms was that they played it a little too safe and mirrored A New Hope a little too closely. Now I had predicted in videos months and months ago that it would probably parallel A New Hope to a degree, and that Episode 8 might parallel Empire, and Episode 9 may parallel Return of the Jedi to an extent. So after you go see The Force Awakens again and the euphoria wears off and the newness and excitement of Star Wars being back, you kind of start thinking about it and you realize, you've probably seen that movie before. So what I'm going to do today is go over my top 10 reasons why The Force Awakens is exactly the same as A New Hope. Now this is not meant to be, some major criticism, although I guess it kind of is. But at the same time, I'm not a Disney spokesperson, so I got to poke a little fun at it. So let's jump right in, and at number 1 we have the main characters of both movies, Episode 7 and Episode 4, are young kids basically who grow up on a desert-style planet, Tatooine and Jakku, and they both are really good at fixing shit. And it seems they have no real future ahead of them, but they have a larger destiny when they get sucked into the Galactic Civil War. So we had Luke in Episode 4, who was apparently a pretty damn good pilot, although we never got to see him shoot womp rats. And we have, of course, Rey, who is a good scavenger and tinker, knows how to fix everything, and apparently learned some piloting skills herself, when of course she escaped trained TIE pilots in the Millennium Falcon, which she had never flown before at all. Now granted, they're both force sensitive, so that explains a little bit of why they're so good at things and why they're good at piloting, because the force is kind of there to guide them, so to speak, yada yada yada. But at the same time, it is exactly the same character, and they're probably related. And at number 2, in both movies you have a cute little droid who seems to be the key to the entire story, that's containing some kind of plans, or in this case in Episode 7 a map, to something of importance, and the big bad guys, the Empire, or now the First Order, is after those droids to get those plans or to get that map. So of course in Episode 4 that's R2 carrying the original plans to the original Death Star 1.0, and now of course we have BB-8 in The Force Awakens carrying the map or partial map to Luke Skywalker. But both the same premise, the droids are there, and the big bad evil Empire, or the First Order, are hunting the droids to get the information before the good guys do. And at number 3, both main villains are both fallen Jedi, essentially, although Kylo Ren was never really a full-fledged Jedi. Darth Vader and Kylo Ren mirror each other in the sense that they're fallen lightsiders, so to speak, who turn to the dark side, and they end up after these droids and after the protagonists in our films, and they capture someone and try to obtain the information from them using torture. Of course, Darth Vader captured Princess Leia and tried to torture her into giving up the plans to the Death Star, as well as the location to the Rebel base. And of course, Kylo Ren captures Poe Dameron at first, as well as Rey later on, and tries to torture them to get the information about BB-8 and where the map to Skywalker is. And it just so happens they both like to occasionally get mad, throw a temper tantrum, and give out the occasional throat hug. And at number 4, our main characters, sad kids from desert planets with no real future, end up with Han and Chewie on the Millennium Falcon, and they even hide in the fucking floor in both movies to escape the bad guy. Although in The Force Awakens ended up being Han Solo in the first place. And coming in at number 5, we have the cantina scene. Our protagonists go into a cantina to hitch a ride somewhere, and of course in A New Hope, that was when Luke and Obi-Wan went into the cantina in Mos Eisley and found Han Solo in the first place. But nevertheless, the same basic scene with all the different riff-raff of the universe, where all the scum and villainy hang out. Now in Episode 4 A New Hope, you saw Obi-Wan cut off a guy's arm with his lightsaber, and to my understanding that was actually a scene they cut out from the movie where Chewbacca ripped somebody's arm off, so they were damn near, as far as my understanding, going to recreate that actual scene as well. And coming in at number 6, we have the big bad evil weapon of the antagonist of our film, the Empire, aka the First Order in the new film. So we have Death Star 1.0 in Episode 4 where Luke destroys it, and of course moving up to The Force Awakens we have Death Star 3.0 Star Killer Base. So it's just a little bigger, a little badder, and can do a lot more damage, as if destroying an entire planet wasn't enough damage. Yeah. And at number 7, to destroy said massive evil super weapon of the evil Empire / First Order, the Rebellion, now called the Resistance, sends in the smallest fucking ship it can possibly find, that is the X-Wing, and they send in these X-Wings to destroy said evil big monstrous weapon to rid the galaxy of another round planetary terror.
Well, welcome to the Terror Dome.
Yeah, I just made that up. And on top of that, to actually destroy the weapon, they even do a trench run again like they did in A New Hope, where that was, of course, Luke feeling the Force and listening to Obi-Wan, and he shot 2 torpedoes into the thermal exhaust port. And basically the same thing in A Force Awakens, only Poe Dameron flies down the trench and flies into the thermal exhaust port himself to go ahead and blow up the internal area of the base that contains all the energy stored up by the sun. And he, of course, destroys that before flying out to safety himself. And at number 8, we have the big bad guy as far as our villains in the stories. A New Hope, we had Darth Vader, and of course in The Force Awakens, Kylo Ren. They both survive said destruction of said super evil weapon and come back to live another day. But again, that's not necessarily a bad thing there. I mean, I want to see Kylo Ren grow and become a badass supervillain like Vader. He was already established, and we'll see if he turns out to be as good as his grandfather. And that leads to number 9, where said badass villain kills the mentor of said teenager with no future on a desert planet. Of course, in episode 4, you had Obi-Wan, who really committed suicide and turned into a Force ghost before Vader struck him down. A lot of people say Vader killed Obi-Wan. Not really. If you think about it, he kind of did this whole thing and became one with the Force before Vader's lightsaber ever touched him. But I digress. Either way, whatever. And of course, in The Force Awakens, Han Solo had become kind of a father figure to Rey on their short time together, and his son kills him on the bridge that looked just like the bridge at Bespin when Luke lost his hand. And coming in at number 10, we have a mysterious overlord who is apparently the master of our badass supervillain. In episode 4, we didn't know who Darth Vader reported to. He only called him the Emperor. But when we finally saw the Emperor, we didn't know who he was exactly as far as being Darth Sidious and the Sith, etc. But when we saw him, he was a larger-than-life hologram who was very mysterious, and we didn't know who the hell he was. Of course, in The Force Awakens, we have Supreme Leader Snoke. Many of us still think is Darth Plagueis. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, Andy Serkis came out and said, it turns out he's just Snoke. He's not going to tell you anyway. But anyway, in The Force Awakens, it's basically the same thing. You have a larger-than-life hologram. You don't really know much about him, other than he's the master of Kylo Ren, just like you found out Palpatine was the master of Darth Vader. So either way, a mysterious, shrouded overlord who has plans for the entire galaxy, who seems to be pulling all the strings, and we don't really know shit about him. So anyway, guys, that was my top 10. There's a lot of other things that I could go through, and I left them out purposely just for the sake of time for the video. There's a lot of little scenes that were almost dead on as well. So my question to you guys is, what else did you see that paralleled or actually copied A New Hope? So let me know in the comments what you think about it. And as far as episode 8, what do you think you're going to do with that? Now, I think they will probably parallel it to a degree, but I think after all this criticism of this essentially being a reboot of Star Wars with new characters, I would imagine that the writers and new directors will probably take the next couple episodes and make them a little more original, because I do think JJ played it a little too safe here. And this is certainly not to take away from the new characters or the movie itself, although I guess it is a little shot at the movie. But anyway, it's not to take away from these guys. I do love Daisy Ridley as Rey. I love John Boyega. You gotta be honest, no matter how big of a Star Wars fan you are, it basically is the same movie with new characters in a few different settings, etc. Anyway, that's my take on it. I still love the movie. I still am glad it's back. I saw it 3 or 4 times, whatever. There's a reason you like the movie so much, because you've seen that story before. Also, real quickly, guys, please check out the new channel that Val and I from Because Geek has created together. We partnered up and created a channel called Because Views. I will link that in the description below. And it's basically a behind-the-scenes channel about Smokescreen and Because Geek and our little YouTube journey and how we got started and where we're going, and a lot of behind the scenes stuff as far as outtakes and what it really takes to be a YouTuber, an up and coming YouTuber I should say, because we want you guys to see that from behind the scenes and take the ride with us. And of course I have a lot of other stuff planned for Smokescreen as well, but in the meantime you can click here for the last video I did, which was a Game of Thrones Q&A video, and also talk about the Winds of Winter release date. So check that out, let me know what you think. Thanks again, you guys. Thanks for all the support. Be sure to subscribe to get everything. Thanks for watching, you guys, and we'll see you next time.